Okay, I'm not going to take a break. We're going to move on to the next question. What's the best approach to teaching theory of mind to a very verbal 10-year-old ASD child? He is capable of analysis through conversation.
Okay.
This is a sharp cookie, but getting that other piece of knowing, okay, just because I think this doesn't mean that you are.
The best way is to make sure that he does not memorize any of any of the conversations,
Okay.
or any of the reasons of how you know theory of mind.
Okay.
So another definition of theory of mind is perspective taking, being able to take someone else's perspective. And in development, it starts early on. I always use the example of when you play hide and seek.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of kindergarten, there's usually 1 or 2 kids that can play hide and seek really well.
Yeah.
And then by the end of kindergarten, more than half the class is playing hide and seek really well.
Oh.
And then it goes into 6, 7, 8. But it's the idea that at the beginning, you learn through your senses. Like, oh, I saw that, so I know it. You saw that, so you know it.
Right.
And it's really using their senses. And then it starts going to sensory perspective taking, where it's like, oh yeah, because you were there, you saw it, and now you know about blah, 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 so I don't have to repeat for you. And then there's different orders of theory of mind, of perspective taking, where, like to be able to lie, you have to be really good at perspective taking. Some of our kids actually are really good liars, but there are really specific circumstances. It might not be generalized. It's just something they've had a lot of practice, and they've gotten caught a lot. So then they just get better out of practice. But really, when you're looking at theory of mind, the important thing is the kids have to learn not to memorize the information.
Okay.
So, back when he was learning language, I remembered that's dog, so it's a dog. I remember that's cat, that's a cat. There's an easy way just to throw it into memory. But what they didn't do is they didn't analyze their environment. Like, what's going on? How do I know this? I was there, I was sitting there, I see, I hear. Which one of these is working right now? Which of these is in play? And then being able to, from there, understand, like, higher order, where you can't be embarrassed unless you know that the person has some expectation of you.
Right.
And a lot of our kids will use embarrassment with no theory of mind, because if they say they're embarrassed, there's no adult that's going to keep embarrassing them. They just let them out.
Right.
So then we think that they are embarrassed, but they really aren't. They just know that if they say this, they immediately get escape.
I see. Now, these lessons are also in skills.
All of this is in skills. There's a whole order in skills, and under our cognition curriculum, if you go in there and actually go through, starting with just desires, to basic desires, all the way to sarcasm, identifying sarcasm, and understanding intentions of other people. It's all in there. There's an order for it. But you can teach it, but the important thing is the kids cannot memorize, and they're going to want to memorize every single response.
Right.
The danger, though, is if they just memorize the response without understanding how it works, they just get in trouble later.
Okay.
Because when they're caught in school,
yeah.
And they're just like, why did you do this? Do you know why you're not supposed to? And then they say, yeah, I know, because some memorized response. They don't really understand how it works. They get in a lot of trouble.
Okay, so we have to be careful, change it up often enough so that they can't memorize the responses.
And you also generalize, too, like the kid where there's a kid on the show, and I won't say who, but a long time ago, I asked when we were working on like there's just general knowledge, things people know without ever talking. And I was like, does it get dark at night? And he was like, yes. And we had been going, I thought he knew it for sure. So we're walking to the park, and I just pointed to some random stranger. I said, does he know that it gets dark at night? And he said, no. And I was like, wait, what? Why doesn't he? And he goes, he doesn't know. And I said, so, okay, why doesn't he know? He goes, I don't know him. And so then I was like,
So
okay.
only people I know that.
Yeah. And so I didn't know that rule was what he had made.
Right.
Because we'd only used people around him.
Right.
And then he knew everybody around him. And so then I just said, okay, see that man? He's out here now at the park. So do you think he ever goes outside at night? And then, so without telling him, and then he's like, oh yeah, he goes outside at night. And I said, and so what do you think? Do you think he knows it's dark at night? And he was like, oh. It was like light bulbs shining.
Yeah,
like,
but those are the connections we want to make as early as possible, because then they can add that into everything that they're doing right now. You could teach it to somebody when they're 27, but let's spare them that and teach it as early as we possibly can.
Yeah, and you just want to make sure that you know what they're thinking, because then you know what all the illogical rules are before you tell them what the right answer is.
The grandpappy of all, the mom I know that just could not get her child to stay dry at night. Could not get him to stay dry at night, and just every night was getting up and having to wash the sheets, and it's just like so miserable, right? And finally one night, in that fit of, you know, when you're not going to win the parenting award, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and she's stripping the bed, and she just said to him, why can't you just get up and go to the bathroom at night in the middle of the night? And he said, oh, I thought I was supposed to go to bed and stay in bed. I'm allowed to get up? And she was like, oh, faceplant, right? Because here he had this rule in his head, and that conflicted with the rule of you must go to the bathroom. I go to bed and I've been told to stay in bed at night. If our kids will just tell us what the rules are in their head, we could solve a lot of the problems.
Which for the kids like this, I always say you take a baseline of what their knowledge is.
There you go.
You have to be very neutral, and they can tell you all their wrong responses, and you don't respond to all of them. Because
Okay.
you need to hear everything they're thinking in a very
Right.
neutral, non-punishing way.
Right.
So that you can know, like, oh, that's what you think.
Right.
Then you can go back and fix the deficits. But if you give any opinion, and because so many of our kids want to please their parents or the
Yes.
therapist or whoever they're working with,
Then
they
they
try to
shut
give you all the answers that they think that you want to hear because someone's told them.
Okay.
They don't really get it.
We've only got like 4 minutes left, so let's try to squeeze this one in.